We begin today in Washington with new developments in the ongoing tensions between the White House and the Pentagon. The White House has reportedly ordered Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to immediately cease the use of polygraph tests in an internal investigation aimed at rooting out leakers. The unusual intervention is said to have been prompted after Patrick Weaver, a current advisor to Secretary Hegseth, alerted senior administration officials that he could soon be subjected to a lie detector test as part of the probe. Weaver, a veteran of the National Security Council and the Department of Homeland Security during President Trump's first term, reportedly objected to the measure, escalating the matter outside the Department of Defense. The internal investigation itself was initiated back in late March. A memo from Hegseth's then Chief of Staff, Joe Casper, cited recent unauthorized disclosures of national security information and warned that polygraphs would be utilized. This latest controversy follows closely on the heels of the SignalGate scandal, an embarrassing episode where sensitive details about impending U.S. military strikes on Houthi targets were accidentally leaked to the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic. The leak occurred because the journalist was mistakenly included in an encrypted Signal chat with top officials, including Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio. National Security Advisor Michael Waltz ultimately took full responsibility for the error. The recurring leaks, and now the controversial methods to stop them, have placed Secretary Hegseth under intense scrutiny. However, President Trump has continued to offer his firm public support, a crucial backing that has so far insulated the defense secretary from the political fallout and highlights the administration's priority on loyalty and cracking down on unauthorized disclosures. While the administration contends with internal security, its allies in Congress are on the offensive, promoting a major legislative victory. House Republicans held their first public field hearing in Las Vegas to champion the fiscal year 2026 federal budget, which President Trump signed into law on July 4th. The bill, which they've titled the One Big Beautiful Bill, has a signature provision directly aimed at service industry workers, making the first $25,000 of income from tips completely exempt from federal taxes. Representative Aaron Bean of Florida told the Las Vegas audience that the policy was born here, stemming from a conversation President Trump had with a server while on the campaign trail. House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Jason Smith provided concrete numbers, estimating the tax break will save the average tipped worker around $1,300 annually. For the Las Vegas metropolitan area, he projected the total benefit would be $230 million put back into the local economy. The Republican strategy is to highlight this populist tax cut in key areas. However, the budget is facing fierce criticism from Democrats, who argue the bill's benefits are targeted and come at a steep cost. Opponents point to significant restrictions on Medicaid funding, which they say will harm vulnerable populations, and the rolling back of federal incentives for renewable energy development, which they argue undermines climate goals and the clean energy sector. The debate encapsulates two competing economic visions: a Republican focus on targeted tax cuts to stimulate spending versus a Democratic push for broader social program funding and investment in green infrastructure. This domestic economic agenda is running parallel to major developments on the international trade front. President Trump announced yesterday from his golf resort in Turnberry, Scotland, that the United States has finalized a new trade agreement with the European Union. While the full text and details have yet to be released, the deal is widely expected to resolve a series of contentious, tit-for-tat disputes that have strained transatlantic relations for years. This likely includes the removal of tariffs on European steel and aluminum, which the U.S. imposed on national security grounds, and a resolution to European threats of digital services taxes targeting American tech giants. A successful agreement would represent a significant de-escalation and a move towards stabilizing trade with one of America's largest economic partners. Meanwhile, a far more complex trade negotiation is entering a critical phase today. US and Chinese trade officials are meeting in Stockholm, Sweden, in a high-stakes effort to finalize their own comprehensive trade deal. The talks are shadowed by an August 12th deadline, after which a new, severe round of US tariffs on Chinese goods is scheduled to take effect. President Trump commented on the talks yesterday, saying, "We're very close to a deal with China," an optimistic but familiar refrain. Sticking points are believed to remain over core issues, like the protection of American intellectual property, China's subsidies for state-owned enterprises, and verifiable enforcement mechanisms. The outcome of these Stockholm talks will have profound implications for the global economy, potentially ending a costly, multi-year trade war or plunging the world's two largest economies into a new phase of conflict. But even as Washington and Beijing attempt to find common ground on trade, a new report warns of a much deeper structural economic rivalry with profound national security implications. The report, issued by the Washington-based think tank Foundation for Defense of Democracies, reveals that China has established a near monopoly over the global supply of critical minerals. Specifically, it finds that China controls the processing of over 80% of the minerals essential for the high-performance batteries that power modern technology. This isn't just about electric cars and smartphones. These batteries are indispensable for a wide range of US military systems, including guided missiles, fighter jets, and the drone fleets that have become central to modern warfare. The report argues that Beijing built this dominance through a long-term strategy of brute force economics, utilizing state subsidies, intellectual property theft, and predatory pricing to drive international competitors out of the market for mining, and crucially, refining materials like lithium, cobalt, manganese, and rare earth elements. The FDD report offers a stark conclusion, warning that in any future conflict, Beijing could also weaponize the battery dependence of the US military and its industrial base. This dependency is now seen as a critical vulnerability. It has triggered urgent discussions within the Pentagon and Congress about the need to rebuild domestic supply chains, partner with allied nations like Australia and Canada for friendshoring of mineral resources, and invest heavily in new technologies to reduce reliance on this Chinese-controlled choke point in the global economy.